The Galactic Empire stretched across thousands of systems, binding together hundreds of species under its banners of order and supremacy. To most civilizations, its authority seemed eternal, an immovable structure backed by vast fleets, countless soldiers, and an ideology that saw itself as civilization incarnate. It considered itself the pinnacle of galactic evolution, and within its borders, dissent was crushed with efficiency and indifference. The Empire's greatest strength was not its fleets or armies, but the certainty it had instilled in the galaxy, that resistance was futile, that empires did not fall, and that the will of the throne was law beyond question. Humans lived within the Empire's borders as tolerated subjects. They were not counted among the core species, nor granted influence in the imperial court. They were Deathworlders, yes, and even the Empire respected that to a degree, but they were dismissed as crude, unstable, and violent, a species useful as labor, mercenaries, or traders, but not as equals. The Empire kept them close enough to exploit, but far enough to remind them they were outsiders. For a long time, humanity played along, watching, waiting, trading, building. They understood that they could not match the Empire fleet for fleet, that standing armies could not be compared. But humans did not measure strength in fleets and armies alone. The incident began on a remote colony world under imperial jurisdiction, where 50 human women were detained by local authorities. The charges were vague and contradictory: smuggling contraband, espionage, spreading dissent, even illegal gatherings. The truth was simpler. These women had interfered with imperial exploitation, helping locals resist unfair taxation, shielding enslaved workers, and providing aid where the Empire had deliberately withheld it. In the Empire's eyes, that was subversion, and subversion could not be tolerated. When the order came down, the executions were not quiet. They were not hidden. The Empire staged them publicly, transmitting the event across multiple systems as a demonstration of what awaited those who defied their rule. The women were bound, accused, condemned, and dispatched with mechanical efficiency. No appeals were allowed. No consideration was given. They were human, and to the Empire, that was enough reason to make an example of them. Most species watched the broadcast with indifference. Executions were nothing new. The Empire crushed resistance every day. To them, this was another display of authority, brutal but ordinary. Some murmured unease, whispers that killing humans in such numbers might bring trouble, but the majority dismissed it. Deathworlders were dangerous. Yes, but what could one backward species do against the weight of a galactic empire? The throne had spoken, and life would go on. But for humanity, it did not go on. The footage spread quickly across human colonies and outposts. At first, disbelief, then grief, then rage. On Earth, in the colonies of Mars, Luna, Europa, and in scattered stations across the frontier, humans gathered to watch what had been done. They saw the faces of their sisters, their daughters, their wives, their mothers. They saw the indifference with which their lives were taken. They saw the casual cruelty in the Empire's display of power. And something shifted. Where other species might cower or submit, humans mourned differently. For humans, the dead were not lost. They became symbols. The 50 executed women were remembered not as victims, but as martyrs. Their deaths were not the end, but the beginning. On every human world, voices rose demanding justice. Memorials were raised not of sorrow, but of defiance. Candles were lit not to mourn, but to swear oaths. 50 mothers, they began to say. 50 lives taken. 50 debts to be repaid. The Empire did not notice the change at first. Its governors carried on, its fleets patrolled, and its commanders scoffed at the idea of retaliation. They had crushed species far greater than humanity before. What was one more minor subject people compared to the might of the Empire? But humanity was unlike the others. In hushed meetings, in encrypted transmissions, in hidden bunkers and quiet taverns, human leaders gathered. Veterans of colonial wars, engineers, miners, traders, scientists, they all came. Rivalries were set aside. Old grudges dissolved. For the first time in centuries, humanity spoke with one voice, united not by politics or profit, but by vengeance. They understood what had been declared. The Empire had made war on them, even if it did not realize it yet, and humanity would answer. The first retaliation was small, almost invisible against the scale of galactic conflict. A band of human privateers intercepted an Imperial convoy near the fringe. The Empire expected pirates to take cargo and flee, but humans had no interest in theft. They destroyed every escort ship, boarded the freighters, and left nothing behind. The wrecks were scattered across the stars as silent warnings. The humans did not claim responsibility openly, but the message was clear. The blood debt had been acknowledged. The Empire dismissed the incident. Pirates, they said, an unfortunate loss, but hardly unusual. To the galaxy, it seemed insignificant. But to humans, it was the first spark in a firestorm. Across human space, preparations began. Factories shifted from production of trade goods to weapons. Shipyards, once building cargo haulers, were refitted to construct warships. Civilian crews trained as militias. Scientists studied Imperial technology, tearing it apart, learning its weaknesses. Veterans drilled new recruits, teaching them not how to fight like soldiers of the Empire, but how to fight like humans, using every trick, every adaptation, every ounce of cunning their Deathworld heritage had forged into their bones. The Empire had thought the executions would be the end, but in truth, they had awakened something far greater than they imagined. The women they executed were not forgotten. They had become the soul of a cause. Humanity had been underestimated for the last time, and as the Empire went about its business, confident in its superiority, humanity prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. For humans, war was not an occupation. It was survival. It was memory. It was inheritance. And now it was inevitable. The first battles had yet to be fought. The first great fleets had yet to clash. But already, in the hearts of every human, the war had begun. The Empire believed itself eternal, but empires were built on fear. Humanity knew no fear. Not anymore. The executions had seen to that. The galaxy would soon learn what it meant to make enemies of species that never forgave, never forgot, and never stopped fighting once roused. The story of the 50 Mothers was only just beginning, and with it, the fall of an empire that had thought itself untouchable.